Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Soul Land 2 Unrivaled Tang sect based on novel. So let's start. After glancing at the place where the Skydream Iceworm had disappeared, the Ice Empress continued. He personally witnessed a huge fight between the Evil Eye Tyrant King and the beast god Di Tian, who is one of the 10 great savage beasts. The Evil Eye Tyrant King was indeed very strong. Even against the beast god, he still had a chance of victory. The beast god's cultivation was around 820-some thousand years, and he had overcome an additional bottleneck compared to the Evil Eye Tyrant King. The two beasts fought for 3 days and 3 nights before the beast god managed to defeat the Evil Eye Tyrant King due to his superior cultivation. At that point, the Evil Eye Tyrant King tried to kill Skydream before he left. However, the voice of a mysterious existence suddenly sounded, and scared him off. Huo Yuhao was stunned as he asked, "Mysterious existence? What mysterious existence is there in the Great Stardew Forest?" The Ice Empress replied, "I'm not too sure, either. Skydream only knows roughly. The beast god Di Tian is equivalent to the most outstanding ultimate Doluor, but there seems to be a stronger existence in the Great Stardew Forest that is asleep. It might be like Elder Yi, halfway into the realm of gods. It has been sleeping all this while, and probably only the beast god knows how strong it is. Yes. I once heard Di Tian call him master." Skydream's voice sounded once again, but he didn't appear. Huo Yuhao was stunned as he asked, "Are the two of you asking me to obtain the skull of the Evil Eye Tyrant King?" "Fool, of course not." The Ice Empress answered. "Evil Eye Tyrant is a species. There isn't just the Evil Eye Tyrant King. Furthermore, you might not even be able to obtain the skull of the Evil Eye Tyrant King. His 8th bottleneck is about to arrive. Initially, he wanted to snatch Skydream because of this 8th bottleneck. If he can't cross this bottleneck and really dies, his soul rings won't remain, although his soul bones will. Furthermore, Evil Eye Tyrants are very special because they can only produce skulls, and no other soul bones." Huo Yuhao was greatly affected after he heard that they could only produce skulls. Generally speaking, whether or not a soul beast would produce soul bones was up to chance. The higher the cultivation of a soul beast, the more likely it was for a soul bone to appear from it. Only 100,000-year soul beasts would definitely produce soul bones. Under such a situation, Huo Yuhao was facing a difficult task if he wanted to hunt and kill a soul beast to obtain a skull bone. Skulls were the rarest among the 6 types of soul bones. This was why it was down to luck if he wanted to obtain a skull. In most large-scale auctions in the various empires, a skull would command an astronomical price, and someone would buy it immediately. It was harder than the hardest currency. However, the possibility of obtaining a skull would greatly increase if there was a species of soul beast that could definitely produce skulls. In addition, it was almost 100% possibility if Huo Yuhao managed to hunt a 100,000-year soul beast of this species. Huo Yuhao was intelligent. He understood what the Ice Empress and Skydream meant and said, "In this case, the two of you are suggesting that I find an Evil Eye Tyrant and kill it to obtain its soul bone, since the Evil Eye Tyrant King has either likely died after failing to cross his bottleneck, or is trying to cross his bottleneck and won't disturb me. If I'm lucky, I might even come across the soul bone that he left behind along with his carcass. Am I right?" "You aren't too stupid," the Ice Empress replied coolly. Ads by Pub Future. Huo Yuhao laughed bitterly. However, the problem is that an Evil Eye Tyrant won't be weak even if the Evil Eye Tyrant King isn't around. I don't understand what they're like, since I didn't learn about them in the academy. I can tell you their characteristics. Evil Eye Tyrants live in groups, and they only live in the hottest and most humid environments. Since they are from the Sun-Moon Empire, they must have a habitat that belongs to them. I don't think it'll be difficult to find out where their habitat is. As for their abilities, they are able to cause all types of spiritual interference and confusion to living creatures apart from their main offensive ability, the Evil Eye Ray. Unless it's the Evil Eye Tyrant King itself, an Evil Eye Tyrant won't be able to confuse you. You'll need to work for a soul bone, though. In addition, ask a few strong individuals from your academy to follow you once this matter is over. Aren't there quite a few strong individuals in your academy? We are only trying to help you find the greatest possibility for you to obtain a skull bone, but it's not absolute." "I understand. Thanks." Huo Yuhao firmly remembered the Ice Empress words before he detached himself from his spiritual world. He exited his deep meditative state naturally and subconsciously looked down at his own finger. The ring that the Skydream Iceworm had changed into flipped over, and there were small and subtle words on it. If not for Huo Yuhao's powerful eyes, he wouldn't have been able to see them clearly. The words were, Yin-Yang Love Querying Valley. I went through the same tests with her. I encountered many difficulties, and passed countless tests. Huo Yuhao twisted his lips. Tell me about the result. The Ice Empress wasn't like Sky Dream. If she wanted to sense what was happening in the outside world, she had to go through Huo Yuhao's spiritual power. Right now, Huo Yuhao controlled his spiritual sea completely. That's why Huo Yuhao wasn't afraid of the Ice Empress listening in on his movements in the outside world. However, the Sky Dream Iceworm was different. His spiritual origin was with the Ice Empress, and thus he could only interact with Huo Yuhao through some special methods if he didn't want her to hear. The result was that I managed to pass and obtained my reward. We even. Huo Yuhao laughed when he saw this line of words appear. After that, he asked a technical question. How does a worm and a scorpion do it? Idiot. We turned into humans before we did it. You don't even understand this. After leaving behind this last line of words, Sky Dream Iceworm changed back into the ring, and his spiritual aura returned to Huo Yuhao's spiritual sea. Huo Yuhao was finally enlightened now. He revealed a weird smile on his face. They are finally together. No wonder the Ice Empress seems a little different, even though she's still as cold as Brother Sky Dream. At this point, a faint and cold voice sounded. What are you doing? Ah! Huo Yuhao lifted his head, and saw Ji Juechen looking at him with a weird look on his face. I'm not doing anything. Ads by Pub Future. Why are you smiling at me with such a weird smile in the middle of the night? Don't you think? Huo Yuhao coughed. It's not intentional. You can continue with your cultivation. Also, don't smile so amorously. Although I'm very focused on my sword, I'm not completely clueless about other things. Furthermore, I won't like a guy. Shut up. Since when did you become so talkative? We can fight if you aren't happy. Fight my foot. Are you tired of living? Cultivate. Ji Juechen actually revealed a smile at this moment. He twisted his lips as he looked at the exasperated Huo Yuhao. After that, he shut his eyes. As he watched Ji Juechen re-enter his cultivation state, Huo Yuhao's expression slowly turned normal again. He revealed a sense of loss, and seemed to have recalled when he first entered Shrek Academy with Wang Donga. Weren't they on two similar beds then? I still thought that she was a clean freak back then. Who knew that she was actually a girl? If I could return to the past, it'd be great, even if I have to go through the pain of cultivating again. Donga. Yearning was like a carving knife that carved Wang Donga's unforgettable looks deep into his spirit. The night went on silently. In the morning, everyone from the Tang sect started to get busy. Nan Chochio and Yi Gaiyi posed as sisters, while Ji Juechen and Jing Xian posed as a couple. Huo Yuhao, He Kai-tu, and Shu Sanxia acted on their own. The seven of them left the hotel and went around Sunrise City, acquiring information and gathering intelligence. Huo Yuhao had the most important mission. He used his spiritual detection to survey Sunrise City once. Just like he had expected, he didn't find any hostages in the city. What did this mean? It meant that he should start looking for them underground. The layout of the city was clear in Huo Yuhao's mind through his spiritual detection. It wasn't just the city center that had top-class soul tools. There were also top-class soul tools at the four corners of the city, but he had found no evil soul masters so far. Right now, there were at least 1 or 2 Class 9 soul engineers in the city. As he carried out a deeper level of detection, he could confirm that at least one of the soul tools in the city center had to be Class 9. A Class 9 soul tool had to be operated by a Class 9 soul engineer or a titled Doluor. Since a Class 9 soul tool had been set up, there had to be someone who could operate it. They only returned to the hotel after surveying Sunrise City through the afternoon. After a discussion, they all went to rest. After dinner and freshening himself up, Huo Yuhao went out at night again. This time, he was focused on surveying what was underground. Although he couldn't use his Eye of Destiny, he could still detect up to 50 meters below ground. If there were problems, he would be able to discover some clues. It wasn't a brilliant method, but he had no choice. Fortunately, Sunrise City wasn't like Radiant City. Otherwise, he needed at least half a year before he could completely survey the entire city with such a method. As he walked, he tried to detect whatever there was underground. He continually used his spiritual power to carry out his detection. If it were any other soul master with a spiritual type martial soul, his spiritual power wouldn't be able to last long even if he had such a detection ability. As he walked, Huo Yuhao entered a bustling street. The two sides of the street were lined with stores, and brightly lit. He meticulously detected what was going on underground. Suddenly, he seemed to think of something, and subconsciously lifted his head. Not far in front of him, there was a lady who was dressed to the nines blocking his way. Her looks weren't flattering, she wasn't even at Huo Yuhao's chest level, but her waist was 3 times larger than his. She was in a bright green dress, which made her seem like a watermelon. There were even bright red flowers on her dress. Her chubby face was extremely white, and she had applied even more powder on her face than normal. She had applied blood-red lipstick on her thick lips too. When she blocked Huo Yuhao, a gust of wind that carried the smell of her inferior quality perfume greeted Huo Yuhao. The torrid smell almost caused him to bury his head in the ground. Is this considered a biological weapon? Sir, do you want to come in to have fun? She made a flirtatious gesture at Huo Yuhao and grinned at him, revealing her yellow teeth. Her voice sounded a little sharp and strained. She didn't sound like a guy or a lady. The more frightening thing was that there was a stench that came from her mouth. When it mixed with the perfume from her body, the originally crowded street instantly became empty within a 10-meter region. At least 5 or 6 people collapsed, and Huo Yuhao also stepped back a few steps. There was an astonished look on his face. Ads by Pub Future. Sir, come in and have fun. Our ladies are delicious and cheap. No, they are high quality and cheap. The chubby lady pointed to a building which was shining with pink lights as she spoke. The building wasn't very big, and seemed a little dilapidated. The pink lights made the place seem shady, while the stained walls made it seem like a cheap place. All right, lead the way. Huo Yuhao covered his nose and slowly stopped looking so stunned. Oh yes, sir. You have good taste. As the chubby lady heard that Huo Yuhao wanted to enter, she was delighted, and pulled him over. However, he dodged her. Don't touch me, Huo Yuhao shouted. All right, sir, follow me. As she spoke, she was already walking towards the building. As she walked, she even turned back to Huo Yuhao occasionally and said, Sir, you have great taste. You can call me Lingling. Blag Huo Yuhao couldn't stand it anymore, and retched before gesturing to the fat lady, or rather, the madam. He was asking her to turn around and not talk to him. Her biological weapon was simply too strong for him. The madam twisted her thick, red lips and turned around unhappily. After she entered the building, she shouted at the top of her voice, Girls, come and receive our customer. Suddenly, a bunch of ladies with thick makeup started to surface from different parts of the building. Their dress followed Lingling's style, which was extremely startling. Huo Yuhao stopped in front of the building and suddenly asked the madam, You're called Lingling, am I right? Is it the same Ling as Feng Ling? After hearing his words, she started trembling. She turned around and was filled with shock as she looked at Huo Yuhao. You. Ads by Pub Future. I'll come here to have fun again. After he finished speaking, Huo Yuhao turned around and fled. He used his ghost shadow perplexing track and quickly disappeared into the crowd without anyone noticing. The madam was shocked as she watched where Huo Yuhao had disappeared. There was an indescribably complex look in her eyes. As for the rest of the ladies that had appeared, they were all shouting tenderly as they chased Huo Yuhao. They were indignant, as they finally had a customer, but he ran away. However, Lingling just stood in place without moving. It was as if she had lost her soul. Huo Yuhao fled more than 2 streets before he slowed down. He had confirmed what he needed to confirm. Yes, he recognized that madam. Even though he wasn't familiar with her, he was certain that she was actually a him. Yes, it was a him, not a her. That person was likely to be Feng Ling, whom he had met before. Feng Ling had left a deep impression in Huo Yuhao's mind because of his stinky mouth and his saliva that could even cause smoke to fume when it landed on the ground. His lack of hygiene wasn't something an ordinary person could compare to. Feng Ling should be the young master of the Heaven's Gate. Huo Yuhao wasn't even sure which empire the Heaven's Gate came from, but it shouldn't be very strong. Furthermore, it was unlikely that the Heaven's Gate was from the Sun Moon Empire. Feng Ling tried to take liberties of Wang Donga when they met the Heaven's Gate outside Radiant City. Eventually, he was taught a lesson by Ji Juechen, and fled with his sect. Huo Yuhao also recalled that Feng Ling was the young master of the sect. No matter how unhygienic he was, he possessed at least 4 rings, since he could compete in the tournament. However, he was now in a medium-sized city as a madam. He had even changed his gender. What was going on? If he wasn't a member of the Sun Moon Empire, he had to be one of the hostages. However, he didn't lose his freedom, but his gender and identity had changed. This situation had to be. Ads by Pub Future. Earlier, Huo Yuhao had tried to test him when he thought of all these. He knew that he was right when he saw the expression on Lingling's face. It was too important of a clue. If he followed the clues that came from Lingling, he might be able to find out everything he wanted to. Of course, he might have alarmed the other party with his words earlier. However, it wasn't too much of a problem. After all, Fengling didn't know who he was. It wasn't easy to find someone like him in Sunrise City either. Huo Yuhao stopped at a remote corner, and the light around him started to distort. Very soon, he camouflaged himself with his surrounding environment and disappeared. The high-altitude surveillance soul tools in the sky could detect visual targets, but they weren't equipped with infrared rays or soul power detectors. Current soul tool technology had yet to reach such a standard. After he camouflaged himself using his imitation, Huo Yuhao didn't rush to leave. He quietly hid in a dark corner and waited. Although he had left, his spiritual detection was still working on Fengling. Fengling soon recovered from his shock and returned to the streets, where he started to solicit customers once again. However, his image was too disgusting, and no one could be convinced by him. It was very difficult to imagine why the boss of this low-class brothel would let him make a fool out of himself. The only explanation was that the boss was sick in the mind. Huo Yuhao used his spiritual detection to observe Fengling meticulously. Very soon, he discovered that Fengling's soul power undulations had yet to disappear. This meant that he was still a four-ringed soul ancestor. After he heard someone call his name, his expression kept on changing and he seemed a little unsettled, and even astonished. This was an important clue to Huo Yuhao. This is why he wasn't anxious at all, and continued to wait silently. Fengling only returned to the cheap brothel when it was late into the night, and the shops along the streets were already closed for business. Very soon, the tempting pink lights were extinguished, and everything seemed to turn silent. Not long afterward, a side door of the brothel opened slightly, and a stumpy figure squeezed out. Fengling was no longer wearing the bright green dress from earlier. He wore a simpler gown, and observed the outside of the brothel before he snuck out. After this, he quickly walked towards a certain direction. Huo Yuhao also moved at the same time. He silently tailed Fengling, but kept a few hundred meters distance from him. Fengling passed the streets and alleys before stopping in front of a pointed building after walking for 15 minutes. This building seemed a little worn down, and there weren't any signs on it. The door was unlatched, and Fengling entered the building by pushing the door open. Huo Yuhao had been watching him very closely, and thus he could clearly feel Fengling's fear when he entered the building. He extended his senses and continued to watch Fengling with his spiritual power. However, Huo Yuhao quickly retracted his spiritual power soon after. That was because he was shocked to find out there was a strong undulation of spiritual power coming from this building. While this undulation of spiritual power didn't signify that the other party's spiritual power was greater than Huo Yuhao's, the other party might still detect Huo Yuhao's presence. Huo Yuhao crept forward towards the unlatched door and peeked into the building through a slight gap. It was pitch dark inside, and the air seemed to be much dirtier than outside. Even with Huo Yuhao's vision, he couldn't see what was going on inside clearly. He wasn't surprised by this. Instead, he broke out into a slight smile that carried a trace of cold intent. At this point, he heard a tragic scream resonating from inside. It sounded very pathetic, but it wasn't loud. If not for the fact that he was at the door, he wouldn't have heard the scream. At this point, he sensed that the strong spiritual undulations coming from inside had retracted. He couldn't give up on such an opportunity. He unleashed his spiritual detection and started to survey the inside of the building. There was a spacious hall behind the door, which was pitch black right now. The polluted air came from some unknown origin. For safety purposes, Huo Yuhao controlled his spiritual detection to follow the sides of the rooms and surveyed one round before he entered another hall at the back through the last door. Tragic screams started to reverberate before the voice of a person sounded. "Lowly fatso. I'll whip you to death, I'll whip you to death, ha ha ha. Keep screaming. Scream louder." A hysterical, hoarse voice, extremely awful voice sounded. As this voice sounded, the air rippled slightly. Huo Yuhao's spiritual detection wasn't like before. He could clearly sense how strong the owner of this voice was. It's definitely an evil soul master. It has to be. From his observations earlier, along with how he saw Fengling soliciting customers on the streets as a madam, he guessed that this sort of perverted doing must have been committed by an evil soul master. What he was seeing now verified his guess. However, this evil soul master that was abusing Fengling had at least 8 rings. Huo Yuhao was able to make an accurate judgment from the spiritual undulations he released as he lost control of his emotions. This building was weird. Earlier, He had scanned this direction using his spiritual detection. However, he didn't discover anything. There were indeed members of the Holy Ghost Church here, but the number of evil soul masters was unknown. Huo Yuhao extended his spiritual detection carefully towards the direction of the voices. Very soon, he saw a bloody scene that made him nauseous. Ads by Pub Future. It was a dark, circular hall. There were many broken bodies on the floor, and organs were strewn everywhere. All the blood on the floor had already dried up and turned purplish-black. Feng Ling hung in the center of this hall, and there was a person decked in a black robe beneath him. This person released black fog from his body and was holding a bone whip, with which he whipped Feng Ling unceasingly. There were a few fat people squirming in a corner not far from them. They appeared very dreary, and seemed to be on the verge of death. Huo Yuhao's killing intent was piqued as he saw this scene. This despicable evil soul master must have abused and killed many people, otherwise this place wouldn't look like a hell on earth. At this point, his spiritual detection seemed to jerk, as if it had been shocked by electricity. The person in black who was whipping Feng Ling turned around and roared in fury, "Who?" As he turned around, Huo Yuhao realized that it was actually a she. Her face was extremely pale to the point where it was scary, although it was evident that her original appearance was pretty decent. However, her eyes were bloodshot, and there was a terrifying feel about her now. A strong wave of spiritual power was unleashed from her body, and her 8 soul rings, 2 yellow, 2 purple and 4 black surfaced at this moment. A huge, black shadow appeared behind her, and her fierce look caused the surrounding spiritual undulations to become stronger. Even with Huo Yuhao's spiritual cultivation, this sudden change caused him to turn a little dizzy, and he quickly retracted his spiritual power before fleeing immediately. Just as he burst off, a black figure had already rushed out from the door, and a low-pitched roar echoed in the air. This black figure knew exactly where Huo Yuhao had escaped to, and quickly pursued him. In fact, Huo Yuhao wasn't careless at all. He was extremely cautious, but luck wasn't on his side. After he was discovered and pursued, he realized that he had met a spiritual-type evil soul master. In addition, her martial soul was similar to an avenging spirit. She was a little like Nana, but she was much stronger. Because of this, the gap between their spiritual power wasn't as great as he had expected. When his spiritual detection got too close, she immediately sensed something amiss, and discovered traces of it. Then, she locked onto his body as she followed the trail of his spiritual power and pursued him. As a result, his imitation was unable to help him escape her pursuit. However, they were both almost invisible because of their spiritual power, and wouldn't be detected by the high-altitude surveillance soul tools in the sky. What do I do now? Huo Yuhao was quickly assessing his situation right now and thinking of a plan of action. Run! Given his current cultivation, how could he possibly outrun an 8-ringed soul Doluor? Since you are pursuing me, then he thought of the bloody scene he saw earlier, and a cold look flashed in his eyes. His killing intent also became stronger. It had to be said that Huo Yuhao was rather good at escaping her pursuit. If he escaped in a straight line, he would definitely be caught after a while. However, he made turns around the streets and alleys. While this evil soul master was pursuing him through his spiritual power, he could escape her pursuit, given the strength of his spiritual cultivation, if he used his Eye of Destiny. However, he didn't choose to do so. He only kept on unleashing his spiritual power to interfere with her judgment so that she would make slight errors. While she kept on pursuing him, she wasn't able to catch him. 2 invisible figures were moving quickly and making rounds in Sunrise City just like that. They were so quick that seeing them even made one breathless. Slowly, the advantage of this evil soul master's cultivation was taking effect. She was getting closer and closer to Huo Yuhao. Ads by Pub Future. Suddenly, she peered into the sky and let out an inaudible cry. When she let out this cry, the sky within several hundred square meters around her started to distort. At this instant, all the high-altitude surveillance soul tools that surveilled this region weren't able to function properly. The civilians on the streets weren't affected, but Huo Yuhao felt as if he had been hammered. He only heard a piercing scream echoing deep in his spirit. At this instant, he felt that his head was about to blow apart. The tremendous pain he felt numbed his entire spirit. This is... Huo Yuhao was wide-eyed in shock. It shouldn't be a soul skill, as he didn't sense any undulations from the soul rings of this evil soul master. It had to be a fighting technique that she had invented herself. This was a fighting technique that Huo Yuhao had never seen before. It wasn't just unleashed through pure spiritual power, and it wasn't a combination of spiritual and soul power either. Rather, it was formed using spiritual power and sound waves. Through her immense spiritual power, she managed to enhance the strength of her spirit, which enabled her to influence Huo Yuhao's spirit through terrifying sound waves. It was extremely frightening. If not for Huo Yuhao's great spiritual power that spurred him to instinctively defend himself, his head would have blown apart by now. Simply put, it was like a terrifying scream had appeared in Huo Yuhao's mind. He tolerated the numb feeling for now and leapt over a wall. When this evil soul master unleashed her attack, she seemed to experience a temporary delay in her movements, and wasn't able to exploit this opportunity to catch up to Huo Yuhao. Ah! She groaned. Evidently, she was very confident in her fighting technique. However, she was confused about why it didn't achieve the effect she had expected. Huo Yuhao could tell her cultivation, and thus it was natural that she could tell what his cultivation was too. She could sense that his cultivation wasn't very high even with his immense spiritual power, and knew that he was inferior to her. In her opinion, she should have destroyed him with her previous attack. Even if he wasn't killed, he should have been critically injured. However, Huo Yuhao only stalled for a moment before he escaped towards a residential area. Such a weak soul master is able to possess such great spiritual power. Interesting. She revealed a grin on her face. As she pointed her toes to the ground, she drifted up like a spectre before she charged downward like a bolt of lightning. Huo Yuhao was still affected by the scream earlier, and was evidently moving much slower now. Furthermore, it seemed like his imitation was getting weaker and weaker, and his figure was starting to show. Go and die. Grudge. A strange voice that was low-pitched and hoarse, yet sharp, sounded in Huo Yuhao's ear. Following this, a strange, illusory projection appeared above Huo Yuhao's head. This projection was white, but only Huo Yuhao could sense it. Suddenly, he felt his spirit getting colder, and he started to shudder. His spiritual sea started to rage with waves, and he felt that he was about to lose control of his body. A crazy thought also started to rise internally. However, he didn't continue to flee at this moment. On the contrary, he stopped and turned around. The evil soul master saw a pair of bright, clear eyes that carried a deep gaze. Following this, a dim golden projection rose from Huo Yuhao's body. As golden lights flashed, her grudge in the air was crushed. Ah, interesting. She drifted to the ground and didn't continue attacking. She stared at Huo Yuhao with a strange look in her bloodshot eyes. Spiritual type soul master? Very rare. Your spiritual cultivation has long surpassed your actual cultivation. She seemed to become like a normal person right now, apart from her looks. Huo Yuhao replied, that's right. You must be a spiritual type soul master too. However, the paths that we are taking are evidently different. Your martial soul should be an avenging spirit. Hey, she let out a shrilling laugh, which was filled with hysteria and sarcasm. Avenging spirit? Is my martial soul an avenging spirit? No, you are wrong. My martial soul isn't an avenging spirit. No. Huo Yuhao was the shocked one right now. What is it then? She opened her eyes wide and replied, my martial soul is called the spirit of retribution. Spirit of retribution? Is there such a martial soul? Huo Yuhao couldn't believe what she was saying. Why isn't there such a martial soul? I created it myself. Isn't it magical? Hee. She was laughing, but her laughter sounded very forlorn. Huo Yuhao squinted. Self-created martial soul? I know. Your martial soul is mutated, isn't it? Ads by Pub Future. No. She replied with 3 numbers and her forlorn voice turned callous. Have you seen a mutated martial soul that only awakened when the soul master was 15? No, you haven't. My martial soul came from hatred, a deep hatred. When my hatred reached its extreme, my spirit of retribution appeared. I killed her. I want revenge. All of you can go and die. She suddenly went berserk, and mimicked a lifting action. Following this, her 2nd, 3rd and 5th soul rings lit up at the same time. A weird white glow spread from her body, and countless grudges appeared above Huo Yuhao and started to spread in all directions. At this point, she saw a soul ring shining. It was a clear white soul ring that flashed with a dim golden color. When its light spread from Huo Yuhao's body, his eyes started to shine brightly, and turned shiny and translucent. Purplish gold light that seemed to be illuminated by countless streaks of starlight flashed before disappearing. The female evil soul master's head suddenly rocked back, and she even staggered a few steps. The huge avenging spirit that had been drifting behind her all this while was dissipated before it reformed. The grudges that she had released earlier were also immediately crushed. Spiritual shock. It was Huo Yuhao's spiritual shock in the concrete immaterial realm. Huo Yuhao's body shook slightly. After all, this evil soul master's cultivation was too strong, far superior to his. Although Huo Yuhao had an advantage in terms of his spiritual power, a fight between soul masters didn't just involve spiritual power. Moreover, her spiritual world was filled with a grim sense of evil. While Huo Yuhao's spiritual shock struck her, he also suffered from a backlash. Of course, she was hurt much more than him. As he stepped forward with his left leg, the look in his eyes suddenly turned gentle. A golden projection appeared behind him before embracing him and fusing with his body. Huo Yuhao's gaze turned gentle. At this moment, his eyes didn't reflect the look of the evil soul master in front of him. There was only a look of remembrance in his eyes right now. Remembrance was a very magical thing. Right now, Huo Yuhao unleashed his fist of remembrance, which contained a surging feeling of remembrance. A fist with an indescribable color, but which yet seemed to shine with a glow that encompassed all colors, was unleashed towards the evil soul master. At this point, the evil soul master was still suffering under the effects of Huo Yuhao's spiritual shock. However, she was still a soul doluo, and it wouldn't be so easy to curb her. Just as Huo Yuhao's fist of remembrance was about to strike her, her body suddenly dissipated like a specter. She changed into countless black projections that spread around. Each projection had the same look as her. Ads by Pub Future. However, a sharp scream sounded at this point. All the black projections regathered and appeared where she was originally. It was as if she had been struck by Huo Yuhao's fist. Her body was covered by a layer of shiny light as she screamed. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. This is. Huo Yuhao didn't say anything. He exerted a force with his front left foot and it seemed like he was being lifted up. He raised his right fist and pointed his middle and index fingers forward. The glow that seemed to encompass all colors suddenly shot into the sky and turned into a sword light that was more than 10 meters long. Huo Yuhao's expression also changed. The gentle look in his eyes turned into pain. He pursed his lips tightly, and he appeared to have teared up. His mind seemed to have gone to another world too. The majestic sword light descended from the sky. One's swordplay could only reach the peak if he handled his relationship well. This time, it was Huo Yuhao's sword of longing, a sword which would never be forgotten. The evil soul master was in a daze as she looked at the sword light that was coming down. Her state of mind was already affected because of Huo Yuhao's fist earlier. As she was also a spiritual type soul master, she was also more influenced than any other opponent. Her spirit of retribution relied on immense hatred. However, she was forced into a state of remembrance by Huo Yuhao. Her sense of danger roused her instincts. She lifted her hands, and her seventh soul ring shone. The huge avenging spirit behind her drifted forward and fused with her body. She turned into a specter, but she didn't attack or resist Huo Yuhao's attack. Instead, she turned around and fled. She wanted to escape from the sword light that was crashing down towards her. However, how could she escape Huo Yuhao's sword of longing after she was struck by his fist of remembrance? Huo Yuhao's sword of longing immediately tore her avenging spirit to pieces. Wherever this sword light passed, spots of bright light were left behind in the air. It was as if tears of remembrance had been scattered in the air. The crushed spirit of retribution was reformed. However, it was no longer in the state of a martial soul true body. Rather, it regained the appearance of the evil soul master. Huo Yuhao should be proud of his sword of longing. Without his sixth soul ring, he managed to force an 8-ringed soul doluo out of her martial soul true body using his self-created fighting skill. This showed how strong he was. Ads by Pub Future. More astonishingly, the female evil soul master's eyes were no longer bloodshot, and the look in her eyes became similar to Huo Yuhao's. Huo Yuhao had gone into closed-door cultivation for several months, and fused his various abilities. He had perfectly combined his spiritual and soul power through his emotions, forming his 3 great skills. No matter how strong his opponent was, she would be affected by him if she wasn't emotionally resilient enough to resist the invasion of his spiritual power. These 3 great skills were mainly controlled using Huo Yuhao's spiritual power, as his spiritual power was far superior to his soul power. When he was able to increase his soul power to a comparable level and unleash these 3 skills, he would be able to establish himself as one of the strongest soul masters on the continent. After unleashing his sword, Huo Yuhao was already crying. He pulled his palm back to his waist before flipping it over. He formed the shape of a heart in the air and all the lights were retracted at this instant. There was now an additional heart at the center of his palm. It was a golden heart. Even the most dazzling gem in this world couldn't compare to the glow from this golden heart. This golden heart represented a sincere heart. It was filled with eternal love and remembrance. Huo Yuhao shut his eyes. At this moment, there was only one figure in his mind. There was no other person or thing that could affect his state of mind. He was already deeply immersed in his thoughts of Wang Donga. Donga, Donga, Donga. He was gently calling in his heart. He seemed to see Wang Donga, and how she sacrificed her life for him without any hesitation. Donga, Donga. As he called, that shining, golden heart slowly moved as he pushed his palm forward. In the sky, the clouds moved, and thunder rumbled. After an inky blackness filled the sky, it suddenly lit up. The lights came from an unknown origin, but they formed a heart shape. The signals from the closest three surveillance soul tools were scrambled. After this, their formation arrays blew apart, and they were destroyed. That huge and seemingly boundless heart resonated with the golden heart on Huo Yuhao's palm. Behind the heart in the sky, there seemed to be a beautiful face watching everything that was happening on the ground with a gentle gaze. As Huo Yuhao pushed his palm out, and the two hearts resonated with each other, it seemed as if countless flowing lights shone behind Huo Yuhao's back. There were only memories of him and Wang Donga within those flowing lights. Huo Yuhao's Haodong palm, a palm which would last eternally. This was the last strike of Huo Yuhao's three great skills. It was also his first time unleashing this strike with all his heart. He didn't know it yet, but he had already established his position in the world of soul masters as he unleashed this palm. When his palm was imprinted on the evil soul master's body, she didn't experience any tremendous movement because of his strike as she came charging towards it. Part 1 end here.